Since the release of Enshrouded, I've almost exclusively played Archer or Ranger builds, combined with amazing maneuverability and survivability, a sweet combo of hitting enemies like a truck from afar with heavy bows and dance around on the battlefield. I still think it's one of the most, if not the most, fun and efficient build to take out enemies and just make your adventures so much more fun in Enshrouded. So yeah, after clocking like over 124 hours in the game, I thought like, why not share my build with you guys today? Share everything you need to know about my Swiss Army knife of Archer builds, let's say. Not only some gameplay and the skill tree like you see on most channels, but also essential farm spots to get your hands on arrow resources in no time, as well as top tier snacks to make this build even more powerful. Where to pick up the gear, which bow is best, including the ammo. So without further ado, let's get right to it. I quickly want to say a huge thanks to every single one of you guys for the amazing support on the channel. All the positive feedback on my previous videos as we made it. Check it out, on the counter we have 150,000 subscribers. So I quickly wanted to say that. Thank you guys. As usual, it would mean the world to me if you can spare 1 second of your time and hit that like button. You have no idea how much it helps out the channel and of course also other people searching for a guide like this one. If you have thoughts, suggestions to make this build even better, you are always very welcome to leave these in the comment section, as well as ideas for future guides. This versatile ranger build is a Swiss Army knife among builds for archers, as it first of all comes with very high raw damage, with the absolute highest hitting longbow in the game, which already makes your sniper game very satisfying by one-shotting enemies from afar, while it also comes with a lot of survivability, especially because of our increased maneuverability, which I think is a very nice trick in this build. This also happens to be an improved version of my unlimited updraft glider build, which I shared a couple days ago. But yeah, this is just only one of the many tricks the build has in store for you. So let's begin with the armor I use for this build. It's pretty straightforward, but let's go over all the details as well, as I find these pretty important. So first off, as you can see, we have a full Eagle Eye set. This one comes with amazing ranged benefits like critical strike damage, ranged critical strike chance, which make this one very interesting, while chests usually come with a lot of HP and stamina. We get more range damage on the gloves right here, more stamina and sprint speed, stamina regeneration, and stamina regen delay. Next to that, I also use the Rings of Rapacity. I still have 2 of these, as I think the mana regen is still insane. If you use it in combination with some talents which I use to have an infinite glider updraft build, well, yeah man, it still works amazingly well to basically reach any height in the game. But yeah, as I already shared in a video a couple days ago, there is an insane legendary farm which you can do pretty much every 2 to 3 seconds. Get your hands on some new loot, which we're gonna check out right now, as it's still the top tier location to farm for this set. So if you use the grappler hook right here, then kick, this will instantly open up this ornament golden chest, which you find only a couple of meters away from the shrine right here. And if we open up this chest right here, well, this is loot which I farmed after just a couple minutes. I have so many duplicates, which is why I don't save them all the time, but we also have a full Elder set right here, as well as the Radiant Paladin set. Be sure to check out my guide at the top right of the screen if you want to know everything about this farm. But let's move on to the weapon, as I see so many people use a short bow. While I think, especially because arrows are precious in Enshrouded, this is not a pretty smart move if you want to hit like a truck, deal the most damage in the game. Longbows are my bows of preference, because man, you can literally 1 to 2 shot most of the enemies. It's super satisfying and also very easy on the arrows, as you will save a lot of them during the process. The bow which I'm using for this archer build is the Wolfsnarl's longbow. Not only does it have the highest damage, but it also comes with 3 times +7 fire magic damage when maximum upgraded, which most enemies are pretty vulnerable to, while it also has the precise and brutal perk, so +5 critical hit chance, but even better, those crits will hit 20% harder, so I think it's an amazing one to use, while all other bows come with not that interesting benefits. If we quickly check out Athalan, the Huntress, well, this is where you can also find the Deerstalker set, also with very similar stats like range damage and damage multipliers. I think these are also pretty interesting. This might actually be better. Opportunity and backstab damage. So if you really love the backstabbing game, well, I think the Ornate Wooden Bow would be amazing in combination with that, as look at all the modifiers which you can find on the maximum upgraded version of this ranged weapon. But take my word for it, the Wolf Snarl's longbow is gonna hit the hardest in most situations. And the nice thing is, with this you will also save on a lot of ammo, because I see many people say like the longbow shoots slightly slower in comparison with the short bows. And that's true. While it's a very small difference and you will actually save a ton of ammo in the process, as you hit harder, you only need 1 or 2 shots for most creatures to take him out. And this pretty much brings us to the next topic, as ammo is precious in Enshrouded. You don't want to have a short bow constantly spamming those arrows, especially not with certain talents, as you're gonna run out of them in no time. I saw some builds out there where people recommend you to use the shell shock and focus on explosive arrows. Well, these are very expensive to craft, and most of the times this happens off recording, so you can't see the tedious work behind the build. You want to keep things simple and efficient, deal a lot of damage without all the fancy stuff. I think fossilized bone arrows already come with amazing base damage, pretty easy to craft, while towards the end I definitely recommend you to focus on iron arrows. Iron itself is pretty easy to get your hands on, while the feathers and twigs are the biggest problem for pretty much all the arrows you craft in the game. After that, I even upgrade them to poisoned arrows, as sulfur and poison sacks are very easy to get your hands on. So let me quickly show you my absolute favorite spot where I like to farm for all sorts of resources to keep this build up and running. So I have a flame shrine or altar right in between the Sun Temple in the very southeastern part of the world and the ancient spire Kindle Wastes. The reason why I have a quick travel right here is because this place is filled with pretty much all the resources we want to get our hands on to maintain this build. Have all the snacks to be battle ready. So if we walk down the hill at the very beginning right here, you will already find a group with 1 to 2 sand diggers. If you take them out, you will get your hands on that delicious raw sand digger meat, which you can use for cooking, make the best soups or dishes in the game basically to boost your constitution, dexterity. How you can make these I'll share in a second, but if we fly a little bit more down the hill, this is where you can also find scorpions, which are also extremely easy to take down with like 1 or 2 arrows in the head, which you can find right there. And yes, a little bit more to the south, this place is also filled with a ton of these dragon birds, I like to call them. Just aim for their heads and they will die with 1 to 2 shots using this build. They drop raw bird meat and feathers, which are both used for crafting those delicious dishes, and of course the arrows we talked about. In this area, you will also find these palm trees, which I very much recommend you to take down as well, as they drop yucca fruits. The yucca fruits are an energy type of food which you can eat to have a lot more stamina regeneration. Each tree drops 4 to sometimes even 8 of these fruits, which are very easily converted into much better food, which we're going to talk about in a second. These guys also drop sand digger meat, by the way, as well as arrows sometimes, found in Shorewatch. We have the dragon birds, scorpions, and sand diggers in this area, which I think is an amazing farm. And the nice thing is, if you're playing single player or are the server host, you can basically reset this farm every time when you restart your world. Now though, let's also talk about twigs, as it's extremely annoying to farm this specific resource, as you're gonna have to break down a ton of plants to get your hands on this resource. Instead, what you want to do is focus on dens around the world. These have the twigs inside. If you use your pickaxe, you can basically break these and get a ton of the resource when mining. With the miner skill, you can sometimes even pick up 2 twigs with 1 swing. 10% chance to get an additional resource, which I think is amazing. This place right here, right next to the Cinder Vault, is the first location where you can pick up all this resource. If you fly south from the Ancient Spire Nomad Highlands fast travel, you will not find 1 but 2 right here. So this is the first location, and at the Bounty Barn, just a little bit north of that, you will find another one. So I'm currently standing on the first, and that is numero dos right there. So yeah, now that you've seen the build in action a little bit, let's move on to the talent tree or skill points to show you exactly how it's built. So in total, I now have 111 points, but I think you can get even more. Probably missed a Shroud Root or 2, but hey, let's start off with the essentials. So if you're already in the mid or end game, I don't recommend you to follow the inner circle. These are good for the absolute beginning of the game, because right here you can pick up the rested, you can pick up some bonuses for chopping down trees and mining, while if you want to focus on raw damage, this is where you want to begin. In the Ranger tree itself, obviously. So first we're going to pick up the Dex. Dexterity increases your range damage by 5 per attribute. Very important to have as much of this as possible. Then we're going to take the Marksman, further increase our ranged damage by 10%. Take the Eagle Eye. So now after we've taken this point, we can basically zoom in with the bow, which I think is amazing. But after that, you also want to have both the counter battery to have more damage to ranged enemies, but also the sharpshooter to further increase your range damage by 20%. Then we're also going to pick up the skill shot, so you will increase headshot damage by another 20%. Pick up the Eagle's Bane to deal more damage against flying enemies. Don't go for the bee sting, I think it's terrible, but the ranger bonus right here is amazing. +2 endurance, dex, 5 stamina recharge, crit chance and crit damage. Well, you also want to go with multi-shot, as sometimes this flurry of arrows, especially when used as a shotgun, you will have a very high chance of one-shotting even stronger enemies. So that is basically it for the Ranger tree. Now we still have 87 points left. Now we want to focus a little bit on utility, which I also think is essential, especially in the early game. So let's begin with the endurance right here. We're going to pick that one up so we can make way to the runner, increased speed and stamina consumption decreased. We're going to pick up the double jump so we can jump a second time when airborne. I mean, I think this is an essential skill to have for basically any build. But next up, we also want to focus on the updraft. So what we're going to do is pick up the dex right here, more range damage. Also pick up the airborne, gliders consume less stamina, and the updraft. After that, you can also go with the silent stride. Well, this is not necessary as we barely ever sneak with this build. We just go in ham and take out everything we come across. Also go for the endurance, have more stamina. The sniper, when attacking with range through critical strike chance, is increased by 10%, which is a lot, but we're going to dramatically boost this a little bit later. Dealing a crit will restore 5 stam, which is pretty decent. You primarily want to pick that up for the additional dex right here. Well, now you also want to have this one for +20 mana regeneration and more dex. You're doing this especially for the dex right here, as we're not focusing on shell shock or any of the other talents you can pick up right here. Yes, they are pretty cool to use, and I see some builds with them, while unfortunately these are extremely expensive to craft, and many people don't mention this in their videos. They assume that you're gonna have all the time in the world to farm for these materials every single time when you play the game, but in general, you just want to go out there, shoot some enemies, and make it as fast and efficient as possible. And that is what this build is all about. Anyways, now let's focus on the survivor tree, as this is where you can pick up dessert stomach. Many people oversee or underestimate the power of this food slot, as especially if you have access to better foods later game, which we're going to talk about in this video, this is going to become very interesting. It should be your last priority to pick up though, so let's first focus on one I think is essential, as now we're going to focus on blink and also some passive healing 24/7. So choose between either intelligence or intelligence. No, just kidding. You don't need the arcane deflection, so we're going to pick up this one right here. Increase your magic damage, nothing too fancy. But then we also want to pick up the healer. Health gained from healing spells will be increased. Well, this is not why we're picking it up, mainly because of the blink itself. So now we can replace our dodge roll with a short teleport, which I think is amazing to have. So right now we can just constantly dash on the battlefield, and with a lot of stamina, you can already see that we can basically do this forever. You also want to pick up the blink attack, as now you can deal damage with this teleport. Emergency blink, even more interesting, allows you to break stuns, especially for those annoying traps on the battlefield. Very easy to escape from all those sticky situations. Optionally, you can take the healer too, the intelligence right here, and the water aura. Personally, I think it's amazing, as this will passively heal you and your compadres on the battlefield. And this one makes it even more powerful depending on your intelligence, which is already 7 on our character. But now we also want to focus on that survivor tree, finally. This is where you have backstab mastery. All the damage done from the back is increased by 30%, so you want to focus on that. While we also want to focus on all those dex points. Endurance and dex are amazing. Don't go for the jump attack right here, as it's for melee weapons, not ranged. So we're going to pick up the endurance right here. The wanderlust. Stamina consumption on roads will be reduced when sprinting. Chance to spawn stamina orbs when defeating enemies with a bow. I think it's pretty decent, while not very important to have. You want to basically pick that up for the backstab mastery. Stamina consumption while climbing is reduced by 50. Really not interesting, while good metabolism. Increased base stamina regen by 50% is amazing. Be sure to pick that one up. Same counts for the sweet tooth, as then regeneration of sweets is also increased by 50%. Dexterity, oh yes, we're gonna pick up the dessert stomach right now as well to 4 slots, and we're also gonna pick up the endurance right here for additional stamina. Then we basically picked up all the essentials. You can pick up some more endurance right here. You can pick up the inner fire to increase your shroud time even further. I don't really think that's necessary, while I like to go with well rested. Have 5 minutes more rested time. Pick up the lumberjack and the mason. In Enshrouded, you need to farm a lot of resources, so these two are essential. Woodcutting and mining is something you're going to be doing all the time, while you also want to have the quality gear right here, prevent losing durability, make it much slower, and also the miner. When you mine resources, you have a 10% chance to gain additional resource. Amazing for a certain farm, which I'm going to share in a bit. But yeah, now I still have 6 points left, so I can basically fill this in wherever I like. So I'm going to increase my endurance. Take the sneak attack, which can also give you access to the backstab damage. Increase the damage you deal from behind by another 25%. I mean, with bows hitting from the back, that's also going to count. So now if we quickly have a look at our character with its attributes, we now have 18 dexterity, which increases our range damage by 102%, while we now also have a nice amount of endurance, so a lot of stamina right there, which can be increased dramatically with certain snacks we're going to talk about a little bit later. Anyways, let's also focus on that food talked about earlier. 4 types of food which I absolutely love for this build. So if I quickly open up my character menu right here, this is where we can see the status details. I use sweets, liquid, vegetable, and meats. 2 are actually soups, while they don't both categorize as soups. So if you already have access to the farmer, I think these are amazing dishes to make. First off, the constitution. This is where you will find the chicken soup, for which you're gonna need forest beets, water, salt, raw bird meat, which we just got our hands on, and the bell pepper, which I very much recommend you to plant in your farm. Same counts for the dexterity food right here. This is a vegetable soup with also the bell pepper, also the forest beet, and tomatoes. Next up, we also have the spiced tea, which gives us +5 endurance, or stamina basically, which I think is interesting if you're constantly charging your bow basically, because it's going to cost slightly more compared to the short bow, but this is not an essential one. You can also focus on something else. This one, for example, with HP regeneration, while right here we also have the boiled eggs, an amazing one with a 40-minute duration, stamina recharge, health regen, and mana recharge, which only requires 1 egg and 1 water. So now we have a meat, a vegetable, an egg, and also a sweet. The sweets give us +20 stamina recharge. So if we quickly check out the energy tab right here, this is where you can grill the yucca fruit. But yeah, if we quickly go outside and check out my farm, this is what it currently looks like. Sometimes I focus on more bell pepper or more tomatoes, it doesn't matter, but I basically plant all the veggies required for these dishes and store them inside this chest so I can instantly access them from the farmer's inventory. Yesterday, I already shared my ultimate farming guide, in which I share everything you need to know about planting your own crops and making this as efficient as possible. So if you missed it, be sure to check it out. It's in the top right of the screen. Alright, so there you have it. Everything you need to know about my Ranger Archer build. How you can build it yourself. If you found this video helpful, be sure to leave a like. Already very much appreciated. I might try some more builds in the future, but I don't know. I personally think this is just one of the most fun, if not the most fun build out there, which simply gets stuff done. It hits like a truck. It's a lot of fun with all the survivability, maneuverability, and the glider. And yeah, it just really slaps. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about it and maybe what kind of build I should do next. Ladies and gentlemen, a big thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel. Right now though, it's 4 AM out. I want to wish you an amazing day. I'll check you in the next video or live stream. Peace.